was going to go back and look at it on the screen because in my agenda package, it's cut off. So I can't see it.
So just so you know, Helen, we are live streaming.
Yeah.
We're public.
Yeah.
I just still need the link to be able to pull up the YouTube live stream.
And we've got two minutes till we call it. Order.
Madeline, do you have the controller over there for the?
This one?
Yeah. Thank you. I'll need that for my report. And then maybe when the time comes, of course, I'm not sure if it's still defaulted to the.
We are live, Stephen, and I just sent you the link.
That's fine, thank you.
You need that for those slides for me too.
Yeah. You betcha, I've got those queued up. And when are you on?
It's not till
BBC.
10.1.
Got it.
Janet Stewart makes much more sense, Helen.
Yeah, well, Janet Moore is a blast from the educational past. It just
I was thinking, how come that name, Janet rings a bell, but not the last name.
Actually, I didn't mind you doing that either, so.
Can I close this door because it's coming out?
Because I think the public signs are up on it now.
Yeah.
Should have locked the door instead of just closing it. I mean, welcome.
I was signing in, so if you didn't have all those protocols, I would have been sorry.
We're live streaming to the whole world, guys. Just so you know.
And then it's not just almost 6:30.
Welcome, Michelle, to our board meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's cut off in the agenda package too, so if there's any clarification, comment in that column, it's not there.
Right. We'll be able to come up with some conditional statements to still pass that.
Yeah.
With conditions.
So at 6:30, I would like to call the regular board meeting of Monday, October 19th to order. And acknowledge that today's board meeting is being held within the traditional territory of the Daneza and Treaty 8. The meeting is being live streamed, and tonight we've created a new opportunity for the public to join, that have joined us virtually, to ask questions at the appropriate time in the agenda, and we will review what that looks like and is all about. I'd like to do roll call at this point in time. Zone 1 representative,
Madeline Lehman?
present. Zone 2 representative.
David Scott Creek.
Zone 3, Nicole Gillis sends her regrets tonight. Zone 4.
Heidi Campbell.
And Zone 5.
Erin Evans.
Bill Snow.
And Helen Gilbert. You're reminded, because we are on live stream, to let people know who you are when you're making recommendations and things as well. Right, are there any additions to the agenda? Right, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the agenda? Moved by David, seconded by Aaron. All in favor? We have our agenda. I don't believe we have any presentations or delegations tonight. So we'll move on to trustee input and celebrations, and we'll start with trustee Campbell.
It's been slow with COVID. I haven't been around schools visiting. I did go to the Taylor School for reading, and also I watched their, they had a career day, and so I attended part of that. And then we all went to the opening of the school. And I think that's pretty well all I've done since last board meeting.
Trustee Evans.
I just went to the Ann Roberts Young opening, and then Doug Boyd's retirement. And that was,
That was lots. All right. Trustee Lehman.
Yep, the school opening, which was exciting. I don't think we get too many of those in
No
a
kidding.
And I attended the SUPAC, which is good just to hear from.
Trustee Scotland.
I have been in contact with all of my administrators. Everything's going very well. Just settling in, doing the thing. A couple small issues, but nothing serious. See where I can help.
And Trustee Smith.
All right, so I also went to the new school opening, Doug's retirement, then contacted Randy from the high school to see how things were going. I was going to go over to Ambrose, but ran into her the night before in the store, so we had a chat there. Right? She was quite happy. Other than that, going good.
So like many others, I attended Ann Roberts Young opening ceremony and was really pleased to have Boyden draw in the kids in the video clip, and that I thought was pretty cool. And our little farewell for Doug Boyd was wonderful. I worked with Boyden regarding the setting up of a PAC, and I'm happy to report that at the Zoom meeting last week, he has a full slate for PAC, including DPAC. And I don't know what the blend is from former schools, but we got a nice blend of different age groups within the school represented on this PAC executive, which was nice to see. Had one visit to Montgomery a little while ago. Thank you, Brenda, for your quick response on the efforts to support that grant. It's pretty exciting to know that somebody's going to give somebody $175,000 towards a playground. That was really exciting news. Both Brooke Bowes and Margaret Montgomery, if you're interested, are running the Fresh to You fundraiser right now, where you get so much BC produce, and if they get enough ordered, they get 50 free sets that they can turn around and either sell to raise money, or as the intent, I believe, of one of the schools is they will give that free product to families in need. So
what's
that's it. It's called Fresh to You. There's a poster out on the fridge. And the last day to order from Margaret Montgomery is I think this Wednesday, and I'm not as sure about Burko's date to order, but their information is on the website. It's quite reasonable. It's a good way to support schools. And I did get to Bell-Donald's Terry Fox run. So, yeah. Oh, and I went to Finch's Terry Fox run too. I forgot that.
How much time do you have?
More than some people because I'm retired. And my husband goes to camp. He spends a whole week in camp, so I get to play. All right, now that we've clarified that, let's move on to 5.0. Since we're live. Minutes of the regular board meeting of September the 23rd. First, pages 6 to 13 now. You got me blushing.
You did it to yourself.
I know.
I was exhausted listening to you. I'm like, holy.
All right, let's look at those minutes, please, on page 6 to 13 in your package. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Moved by Aaron, seconded by Ida. All right. And give you a chance to look, and then we'll ask if there's any errors or omissions. Errors or omissions? All in favor? Business arising from the minutes.
Can I ask a question? So, on the DPAC parent report from Teresa Brown, she had mentioned about looking into discrepancies in meeting dates, but my question would be, she had said that, I don't know if it's in here, but yeah, it's here. She said, that they were doing most of the PACs were doing elections coming up. Do we know if those elections have been completed? And then do we have a list of who the PAC presidents are by school with their contact information?
Normally it's Sharon through to Stephen's office that gathers that, and I haven't asked. I just know that I think Bert Bowe's AGM is upcoming.
Okay.
So I think the different PACs are at different points.
Can we, for the next committee meeting, possible have a list like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the right communication pathway here would be for, you know, either the board chair or a trustee to get the DPAC president to provide us that information, because actually
I can do that.
Sharon needs it too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she would have to go track down every school, and it's really the DPAC's responsibility to update us with that information.
I'll ask DPAC.
You betcha.
I will ask DPAC. David?
I've been just talking to administrators.
Yeah.
Talking.
I mean, I've emailed them, but some, I don't always hear back.
I have emailed principals too, and not necessarily heard back, so.
Yes.
So I'll email Teresa. I know that Teresa stayed in her position, and I do have a new DPAC slate. But Teresa did stay in her position. Any other questions related to those, or any other business arising from those minutes? Bill?
Trying to find it here, but I believe I asked last time about the Remembrance Day.
No.
Okay.
We've got a report on that later on.
You do? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
All right. There's no other business. On to item 6.0, page 14 in your package, which is the approval of the excerpts of the regular board meeting of August 31st. Moved by Bill, seconded by Madeline. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried. Moving on then to announcements and reminders. And I'm going to make a reminder, or what happened at the SUPAC meeting is the DPAC is going to meet in the boardroom ahead of the SUPAC meeting, and they're inviting everybody. If they've hit that magic 16 mark, they will ask trustees that are joining the SUPAC meeting to Zoom in. So we need to kind of set up how we're going to do that, and I will reach out to Teresa and do that because that's coming up next week.
You're probably gonna add the same thing I was.
Probably, because I need to know a little bit ahead of time.
Yes.
And my addition to their chair is that the DPAC executive were going to come up with a process to ensure that there was some kind of registration.
Yep.
And they were gonna let us know, in fact, ahead of time, what the numbers of people were.
Yes. But I will get something out off of her tomorrow morning, and if I don't hear back, I will chase, because that's important for us to know. And I think the rest of our meetings for SUPAC were aligned. The next meeting for Northeast Roundtable, because of the election, got pushed to December 2nd. I'm not going to put it on here because lots of times there's very little of the agenda that pertains And I don't have the agenda for that. But I will report back what is pertinent to us. Are there any other dates to add to here? So provincial council is only the 24th, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can take the 23rd off. Bill?
I'm down for Tuesday for CPAC.
Yeah.
CPAC. There's a huge chance I'll be in Prince George that day.
Okay, so we'll get a second person to go with us, okay?
If somebody cover with me, I'd really appreciate it.
The BCSDA Academy?
Yep.
So that's a 2-day event now?
It is a 2-day event.
Are we gonna try?
And we booked the boardroom here, so anybody who wants to go can. And for that academy, it's a flat rate of $1,000 for the district, and we can have district staff join us for those sessions. I'm not sure that their full agenda's out yet, but they've talked about some of it, and it sounds like they had a decent lineup of speakers. So it may be, I don't quite know how we arrange for being in the board office on the Saturday, but we've got time to figure that out. So Leah, provincial council is only the 24th. Was one change. Any other changes? Senior staff reports, we'll start with the superintendent's report, which is page 15 in your agenda package.
Thank you, Chair. Leah, if we could focus in on the, it's just, yeah, it's out of whack.
I can't.
It's okay. There you go. There. Right there. Perfect. Thank you. Just checking.
That's good.
Good. And just so the trustees know, what you're seeing up on the screen now, this is just before, there's a 30-second delay, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like for anybody viewing this board meeting live. Right now, it looks like we only have staff. However, just wanted to show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to move along to the superintendent's report for October. And I wanted to give the public some updates here and just remind everyone that all kinds of the most current and comprehensive information can be found on the district website under the COVID-19 tab. However, I wanted to give some specific information around enrollment. We landed approximately at 5660 in terms of our brick and mortar enrollment. Our spring adjusted projection was for 6,000 students, which leaves about 340 students in terms of the difference that we're facing right now. However, as I'll show you shortly, many of those students moved into the Key Learning Center distributed learning program. And so that left about 100 odd who either moved out of town or went into private or homeschooling scenarios. Our approximate in-person attendance was then 94.3% as a district. And if you recall, the provincial average was 85%. I've included here not only a link to the Key Learning Center, but also a graphic. And the takeaway from this graphic is the blue line at the end of the graph. All of the other collection of lines are basically the 3 registration windows of the distributed learning program each year. Blue being September, red being February, and I think the orange being in May, three periods throughout the year. I wanted to point out just how much of an increase you see in that blue line for September, which equates to approximately 400 FTE elementary. About 180 of those are local, about 220 from out of district. That continues to settle, by the way, and in fact, it will be in flux for the entire year in terms of people moving in or moving back out. We continue to take some secondary registrations. Those tend to be for 1 course or 2 courses at a time as opposed to full-time programming. We have added teaching and clerical staff to the Key Learning Center. and both in casual and in teaching time. And so they now have enough of a staff to process those registrations and connect with the families and send out the packages. That will be adjusted as the year goes on. Related to that are a couple of configuration changes I wanted to highlight. First of all, due to that shifting population, there were a couple of locations around the district, specifically Robert Ogilvie and Upper Pine, where the population of students was reduced to the point where we needed to transfer one of the teachers from each of those locations to the Key Learning Center staff. And that was done in consultation with the staff, the PAC president, and we gave them time, both from a health and safety perspective as well as a planning perspective, to make that happen. Will both be landing at the Key Learning Center, and as I mentioned, that would be welcome relief for that programming. Both of those schools, Upper Pine and Robert Ogilvie, continue to have ample space at all grade levels for any returning families or any students wanting to attend those schools. Additionally, just as a bit of an aside update for the trustees, since the opening of Ann Roberts Young, as projected, we now have space in terms of rooms, classrooms at all of our east side schools. And that was as per the plan. Also wanted to let you know that North Peace just recently got through halfway of its first quarter, and as planned took the day to do that turnaround and changing of cohorts. And the update I received from them is that in this second half of the first quarter, they have 18 morning classes that are now non-cohorted, where they're actually able to accommodate every student every day in those 18 classes. There are around 13 that they had to do alternate days because of the number of different cohorts and the number of kids in each of those classes. Therefore, the 75% that we've been aiming for actually is turning out to be higher than that because of the number of classes where the kids can attend on a daily basis. Trustees will remember that that has implications on our rural students, for example. And so it's a smaller number than what we initially anticipated in terms of where these students go when they're not able to attend class. I'll also remind you that we do have supervision in place, locations in place at the high school in order for these students to go. Otherwise, they do leave the campus and they make other arrangements. We will be getting further information from our Secretary Treasurer next month, but just wanted to let the public and board know right now that a significant portion of that 340 students did end up going to the Key Learning Center. And so the district does get the revenue from that. It is slightly less than your brick and mortar students, but we are able to mitigate some of the shifting of resources by the fact that several of them are registered at the Key Learning Center. That, in addition to the federal funds and the provincial funds for both cleaning, extra teaching times, support in different areas, right now we are still solid in terms of our financial budget for the year, with a more specific update to come in November. Moving on to under the category of framework for enhancing student learning and intellectual development. As we speak, there are district reading assessments happening around the district. This happens every year, but we've done this on a more consistent district-wide basis because of the concern coming from everyone, teachers, administrators, parents, senior management, around what we know to be a significant gap that has developed in some of our kids over the last 6 months. This allows schools to better coordinate on a school-wide basis some of the allocation of resources, time, and support. This is also the season around individual education plans. And so there are meetings occurring between teachers, families, administrators, learning assistant teachers to confirm or to set up goals for the year for our students that have what's called an IEP. And as if that is not enough processes, there are also our class review processes, which is a foundational process in School District 60 that establishes the needs of each class, which then creates a bit of a school profile around what are the needs of each of these groups of adults and students together. And I'm actually going to pull up this template right now if it works. And this is what it looks like on our tool that we use called Assess. And almost all of our elementary schools and classrooms have one of these templates. And they complete them together with these, the school-based team and the teacher together to lay out what are, from a strengths-based perspective, what are the characteristics of this group, but also what are some of the individual needs that need to be considered and planned for in that group. This becomes a planning document that the team, as well as the teacher, the administration, come back to from time to time in order to determine whether or not those dynamics are the same or if any of the resource allocations need to change. It's a very powerful process and one that is well embedded in School District 60. Moving along to numeracy. Pleased to report that after the pilot year last year, we've rolled out the license across the district for athletics. We also continue to provide professional development and training. It's being well used in our classrooms. It is not simply a math game. It's a software application that allows the teacher to plan specifically for students and groups of students around their strengths and challenges in numeracy, and it's a supplementary tool to the regular teaching that goes on around numeracy. Under human and social development of the framework, just wanted to profile the importance of school connectedness. Every school has a school connectedness survey that they put out each year, but this is an example of a particular activity that took place at Margaret Murray. And this is a quote from Principal Kathy Scheck. We did a school-wide turkey contest. This challenge was sent home as a family project to encourage connectedness between the school and home. We have displayed all of the disguised turkeys on our bulletin board and are going to be picking winners today. Everyone who entered will receive a little mini cupcake. School-wide, 180 of 338 turkeys were turned in. Students really enjoyed creating at home and using ADST to help them design these treasures. So there's some pictures there of that bulletin board. It's quite impressive. I've seen it myself, along with the book. There's a video here of the book they were all reading as part of that.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Moving along, also under human and social development, I've often pointed out to the trustees and public that we have a number of workshops, not only for involving Pro-D for students, but for staff. And here's an example of one around monthly parenting seminars, organized by our Director of Instruction, Carleen Andrews. So we're really excited about a schedule for all parties involved this year. Under career and skill development, you can read a bit more about we are once again going to be accommodating a Makers Making Change project in our district. This is a really exciting project where we use some of the maker and tinkering abilities of our students to help out students with diverse abilities. I would recommend that you check out the, I'll pull one of these up just to look at. These are the pamphlets that explain what Makers Making Change is and the different programs that they have. And I think the other one, this is a newsletter. Yeah. And so this gives you an example of what this looks like in practice. And it was certain, I don't know if any trustees had a chance to swing by Duncan Cran last year, and it was really successful in terms of the work that they did.
Yeah, I managed to burn myself. The student who was helping me was very patient.
Under operations and HR, just wanted to highlight here a workshop that we're putting on for staff, caring for yourself while caring for others. And that again has been put out by our Director of Instruction, Carleen Andrews, and all staff can sign up for that. There's a poster on that information. And finally, in that section here, or just about finally, sorry, a picture of the Charlie Lake staff, who in a COVID-friendly way were finding a way to have some fun at the end of a long day and playing some COVID-friendly dodgeball.
I don't know.
Pardon me?
What does that look like?
Good question.
Friendly dog.
Stay in your square, I don't know.
Kind of like freeze tag, but with dodgeballs. I don't know. I just wanted to point out as well, under the topic of preventing harassment and bullying in the workplace, our October safety talk that is put out across the district. Every single employee has to fill out this form, read through the materials on the prevention of harassment and bullying. And I'm very excited to bring to the public what our health safety officer and district have been working on. You will start to see these posters similar to our safety posters being posted around every single school and location. Not just schools, every single building and facility in the school district. And this shows very specific language and procedures to follow, definitions, harassment and bullying for all our employees to make sure that we're in compliance and most of all creating a healthy and constructive workplace. I'd like to take this opportunity with Brenda Hooker, our Secretary Treasurer, who's on a Zoom call with us this evening, and wanted to publicly thank her in my report for her service to School District 60 over the last 5 years in a number of different roles, Brenda. And the time commitment and emotional commitment to the district has been phenomenal over the last 5 years. She is deciding, I guess, once again, we're the best farm team in the province because we train people up, they figure everything out, and then some of them move along, as is Brenda to the Courtney Comox district as the new Secretary Treasurer. It's a larger district, and we want to congratulate you, and I personally want to thank you, Brenda, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And Brenda, we do have something for you on behalf of the board, but we'll just, when you find something in your office, you'll know who it came from.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really wish I could have been there in person this evening, so I'm sorry I'm not able to attend.
No problem. As always, under my report and wanting to stay true to our commitment to truth and reconciliation, there's a great backgrounder here. I'll just quickly pull it up. On Indigenous education, there's a website here in terms of what's happening around the district, some updates around our LEAs, but also I was going to point out our backgrounder, yes, on potlatches. So if trustees or the public would like to pull that up, you can kind of read through some procedural and historical information around the tradition and importance of feasts and potlatches in our Indigenous communities around British Columbia. Finally, celebrating some fun activities around the district. Under our Take 3 section here, we have Dr. Kearney Middle School, and they were playing Fear Factor. And so, you know, all as you can imagine, that game, all kinds of gooey substances and challenges, and they had a lot of fun with that in a COVID-friendly way around the school. The pictures below are taken from Hudson's Hope School, and they had a number of activities happening in the fall, again, following all the COVID guidelines, and some great updates and pictures from that school. And finally, a picture of what is a very different but grateful to have a district band program still able to operate in a COVID-friendly way, and there are many, many guidelines to follow for that program to work. So I'd like to publicly thank the band team, teachers and administrators who are making this happen, and the board for continuing to support the band program. And that is my report, and I respectfully submit it. Right, there are 2 breakout motions, but if we maybe, thank you for reminding me, but maybe if we go through the report first and then we'll get to the motions.
All right. Could I please have a mover and seconder? Moved by Aaron, seconded by David. And we do know we have some items to pull up for motions. So if we can go through the superintendent's report, the first section is, before we get to the screen, is his HR report. Are there any questions related to that? I just wondered if, when we look at leaves of absences and changes, if we are seeing impacts of COVID for our staff.
Great question. We're not seeing a huge difference in the number of absences or leaves for that matter. we are noticing that the duration sometimes of a typical sickness, as we might expect, is longer than what we've seen in the past. So instead of 1 or 2 days, it might be 3 or 4, for example. And so some longer times to replace casual or teaching staff.
Karen?
So how are we with the TTOC list then too, because that would impact that as well, when new teachers need to take on.
I think so far we've run into 2 or 3 days where we've not had enough teachers, not enough replacements on the TTOC list. That concerns to be a challenge. We still have postings out there for district TTOCs. The other positions have essentially been filled, including at 101. That position was finally filled. But we are still shorter than we'd like to be on our TTOC list.
Moving on, we'll go through this screen by screen or area by area. Any questions related to this area?
If you want, sorry, so the deadline for transition today, you said the majority returned.
Yes.
Do you know the percentage that came back?
Well above 80%. The one, I don't know exact numbers, but some of the other ones that did not would have registered at the key learning center.
Some districts had pushback from families about their transition date and did end up extending it. Did we have any pushback on that?
Great question. And checking in with the principals and vice principals have not had any indication of that being an issue. And as part of that, if you remember, the district did send out learning plans each week for the families and made it clear up front as per the board's direction around what that deadline was and the implications of it. But as you point out, people made a decision one way or the other.
And when we look at RO and Upper Pine and the fact that we've had to collapse a division there, is that due to declining enrollment or people choosing or the heat because of COVID? No?
Well, the short answer is yes, in the sense that there would be a number of factors. And as I mentioned, there's that sort of 360 around the district. However, it landed more on a couple of schools like Upper Pine and Robert Ogilvie. In the Upper Pine catchment, for example, we do have more families that are able to do homeschool, for example, or help their kids as they register and follow the key learning center program. So that was one aspect out at Upper Pine. Robert Ogilvie went through a change already with the catchment area changes, and part of that is the settling of that population into the different schools. But certainly we'll be looking back later on at this year and getting a sense of the hows and the whys of these movements.
When we went out to Upper Halfway, they were telling us that they were missing 20 to 30%, something like 15 kids.
Yes,
I think
two
that didn't affect-
families.
Was that what it was? 2 families?
Yes.
Okay.
And you know, with all due respect, two families who we were really working well with. They made that personal decision to move to a private online academy. For now, our understanding, Trustee Snow, is that it's for the year only to do with COVID, and we sure hope to get them back. But even when 1 or 2 families makes a decision out there, it has an impact.
That still allowed us to keep everybody there.
Yes.
I think the class, I'm talking with Jared, I think the classes are small, but they needed to be the way that they were. They didn't have any options.
What we can say is that those students are, the ratio and everything else are very well supported out there.
And how's Buick going?
Buke is going, thanks for asking, really, really well. Was it 21, Helen, or 20 or 22?
21.
21.
It was 21.
And we have teachers from the Key Learning Center going out 4 days a week. And by all accounts, as I reported there the last time, but even recently, that is going very well. We do believe that it is a model that could be used in the future for different pockets around the district. And so I'll certainly, in fact, get them to report out to us later in the year specifically about BOE.
How many?
I have a good conversation with Mark. It's being received, the kids are learning, they're happy, they're excited to be there. So I'd love to see it go.
How many teachers go out there?
So there are 2 teachers assigned and they take turns along with the administration going out there. So one teacher would go out for 2 days of the week, the other teacher would be the other 2 days with administration. We have EAs out there. We are also running Strong Start.
The DRAs, oh, never mind, it's right there, it's right in front of my face, sorry.
I'll just slowly scroll through.
Stephen, out there.
Yes.
The one question I had here was, it says like 180 out of 338. So is that the population of school, 338, right?
Yes.
But 180, that could mean that there's 4 families and they bring one thing in, right?
4 kids.
4 kids in it.
Yeah, because it was a home activity.
Yeah.
Connected to the school, so really.
So it could be a higher number.
Good point. Absolutely.
It couldn't be a lower number, but it could actually be a over 200 number.
Yeah, good point.
What's the uptick on the registration for the parenting seminars?
I don't know yet. This didn't come out that long ago. So I can certainly get that to you in terms of the registration.
I'm glad that we brought that back.
Mm-hmm. I also promised to find out how dodgeball in COVID, how those rules work, because I'm not clear myself.
Maybe we could play it as a board stuff.
Where's the table back?
Yeah. The band, I'm so happy to see how they all fit in that room like that. What a great space. And yeah, and it's really nice that we still were, I think, are we the only district band program in the province, or one of the only district band programs in the province? District funded, I mean.
Oh, so there are very few, yes, but we're not the only one. One of the few, certainly in the north. Dawson Creek does not have a band program, for example, and some districts this year are not running their band program because the guidelines were so strict.
So kudos to our staff. Be able to do that.
I was just curious if the band program is able to run, obviously under very strict rules, because there was a choir as well, was there not? Is that ever gonna, is that just too much?
We didn't have an official district choir.
No, I think just North Peace had offered it as a.
Choir was one of their, BAA,
Oh.
was one of the courses we added.
Yeah.
We developed choir course.
Very good. I don't think that's running right now, to be honest with
No,
you.
it's not. I just
No.
wonder if there is actually a remote possibility. I mean, if bands can run, you would
Yeah.
almost think that.
Well, I know
not
that
sure.
the choir teacher and the teacher at North East who runs the drama, musical theater, she put a posting out to ask for community. They want to start up the community choir again. So maybe, I don't know. So that might be.
Right now, singing is one of the more problematic pieces to the arts. And so honestly, I'll give you an update when the time comes, but nothing happening right now. But it's a good question.
One of the questions, and I should have asked this earlier, Stephen, is we do have district-wide professional development day
Yes.
coming up. And if trustees wanted to participate in any of You mentioned wanting to report, participate in any of that professional development, what avenue. We're not necessarily staff, but we are staff in a sense, so
Yeah, yeah.
what route should we follow if we wanted to join some of those things?
I think, well, a couple of things. One, to express that interest, and we can connect you with our learning services, for example. The other piece, though, is that I am aware the board is forming a Pro-D committee.
Yeah.
And I think probably coming out of that committee can be some more formal connections to the various Pro-D opportunities. The one coming up is their sort of provincial day. And many teachers will be doing different things, and so it might not be the best day as an example, but your point is absolutely. We can try to coordinate that a bit better. And but for the one day coming up, many teachers would have headed out of town. Their LSAs, for example, they do have virtual conferences going on, but there may be other opportunities that the trustees can be involved.
Yoga.
There you go. So if there's no other questions, I will bring the next part of my report to the trustees, and that is, I'd like to, do I read this out or do you?
We've got a motion for approval of an orientation and mobility course, EAA course that's being created with a teacher of the visually impaired and to meet the needs of some of our students. That is there, so could I have a recommendation to do this course? I would move by Madeline, seconded by Erin.
I know somebody, I do believe that's gonna have that in the third quarter. Very excited about it. Erin, parent, also very excited about it.
Orientation and mobility is a really specialized field, so it's nice to see. All right, out of district
No,
school.
I'm sorry, I have a question about this,
Yes,
the course. My question is, so I didn't quite, I was reading it, but I'm not quite clear. Can students who don't have visual impairment take this course to learn about it if they are wanting to go into that field or not?
Yeah, I would say that they'll be open.
Okay.
And might depend on the registration. Sometimes these courses come to us in terms of what we would like to see.
Yeah.
But, and then there's the registration piece, but yeah.
Okay.
sometimes they believe that needs of one kid too.
True though.
So, being ever hopeful, let's look at a recommendation related to out-of-district sports and field trips.
Excuse me, Madam Chair,
Yes.
can we vote on the?
Oh, thank you, thank you. Can we vote on the first one? All in favor? Okay, let's see if I can get it right on this one. Out-of-district sports and field trips, there's a number of attachments. And we do know that some of the attachments, there's some pieces that are not there in the agenda package, so, but that we're looking to approve the Clearview Elementary Junior Secondary School, Paul Central Elementary School, Northeast Secondary School, and Presbyterian School out-of-district sports field trips as presented. I would suggest that we add a little bit more to it in the sense that all in conjunction with current COVID-19 guidelines. Because there's a wide range of dates and things in there of when things could happen, and I'm not really sure we're at the stage where we've got inter-community stuff going on.
So do you want somebody to change the motion then to say as presented in congruence with COVID-19
Can I
guidelines?
suggest?
Yeah.
Leah, first part of it, recommended motion, that, comma, in compliance with COVID-19 guidelines, comma, then the rest.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Moved by Erin, seconded by David. I'll ask the question this time. All in favor? Question.
So are they gonna have to come back to us for approval with these? Or are they just gonna be given approval kind of?
Well, there's some that don't have the chaperone on it.
What would happen in this motion if it were passed is that if the conditions were such that the district was in compliance with the COVID-19 regulations, as well as the BCSSA school sports. But keep in mind, the superseding authority there is the public health office, right?
Yeah.
So if we are in compliance with those and do it in a way that follows those guidelines, you are approving that to potentially happen without it coming back to the board. The vast majority of them do not involve interaction with other schools, but as Trustee Snow, I think, is pointing out and looking at, perhaps it's the Clearview request around the volleyball tournament and the basketball tournament, because all the other ones concern just learning groups alone
Well,
going to do activities.
but they also involve them going to places out of district.
Yeah.
Or out of province. I believe at least one was to Grand Prairie,
Where's the school?
or Spursley too, okay? With people there that aren't part of our, not just employees, but other people taking part kind of thing.
And none of these would go ahead unless they were in compliance. The only thing I might also add to the conversation, if I can, is that we're also trying to promote groups of kids and staff to get outside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And to still do activities with their learning groups as long as they're safe and in compliance. And I do understand that healthy tension in this request. But we are, the administrators and the staff and the kids are still hoping where it's safe to do some of these activities.
Well, the high-risk field trip form was a beauty before we had to deal with the COVID-19 protocols. So we're gonna have to be serious with the paperwork that we need to do to take class students.
The one for your Cole Central, third one down, where is that? It says Phillips J. Curry.
Oh, that's the
Grand Prairie
Dinosaur
one.
Museum in, Grand Prairie.
That's the Dinosaur Museum in Wembley. You
Oh,
don't actually go into Grand Prairie.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I just didn't know what it was called.
Not only do we have to be in compliance, we would have to review the health and safety plan of any of the locations or organizations where we go.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, like, something like that, I mean, I understand Trustee Snow's, challenges with that, and I have the same, particularly going out of province, but, you know, we have a museum here in Tumba Ridge, right, that is within our province that I guess I'm just curious
yeah,
why.
it's still out of district, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is the motion before the board,
Yeah.
and with the condition of satisfying those compliance guidelines, and whether or not the board would like to approve those.
Melanie, you had a question related to.
Well, they're just because, Bill asked if it's gonna come back to us and on some of the, I think it's the last one, North Peace. I mean, I trust, but there's no, names of chaperones. Oh, yeah, there it is.
They'll all have to be in compliance with whatever those field trip
Yeah, Presbyterian.
stipulations are.
We just don't know who, but.
All in favor? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Your turn, Brenda.
Okay, thank you. So the first item on my report is the financial overview to September 30th. So the various revenue adds up to $9,942,949. The expenses add up to $822,361, or sorry, did I say 800? Sorry, $8,222,361, with transfer to capital assets of $198,779, leaving a net revenue of $1,5,221,809. So this is the first report for the the first quarter. And it's a reflection, the net revenue shows $1.5 million in net revenue, but this is a reflection of having received the federal grant of 1.1 million, the provincial grant, as well as not fully having all our staff in place for the full month of September. So the fact that it's showing a small net surplus is not really reflective of the way things will be throughout the year. So as mentioned in Stephen's report, there will be a small decline in operating revenue from what the annual budget anticipated. But with the federal and provincial grants, we should see expenses fairly level. So we should be able to present a balanced amended budget without too much application of surplus. But I just don't want trustees to think that we're significantly going to have COVID savings. We did our COVID report to the ministry, and there's not significant savings at this time. And our COVID expenses are actually quite high with the additional staff and the additional cleaning, et cetera. But again, those are going to be offset by the grants. So this is an early report. We'll have a better idea once the ministry releases their revised enrollment numbers and revenue projections in December. And then we can have a better idea of a preliminary financial report for the November board meeting, but it will likely be January before we get a good look at the amended annual budget and really what the full implications of this unique year are going to be. Thank you. And so then the next item on my report is the Human Resources Support Staff Summary. And that is my report, respectfully submitted.
Accept the report. Maren, seconded by David. Any questions of Brenda at this time? Erin?
Are we expected for the financial report to have any surplus at the end so far? Can you forecast that, or do we have to wait till January?
So when we submitted our annual budget last spring and the board finalized at the June board meeting, we were anticipating an application of surplus of $164,000. And at this point, we are looking at a reduction in revenue, but we submitted fairly conservative costs in regards to our additional revenue expectations, as well as we increased our areas of expenses like TTOCs and sick leave benefits, etc. So we built a lot of those potential impacts from COVID into the budget, and that was prior to the federal grant announcement. So if we do receive the full $2.2 million, we should be able to cover the additional COVID expenses with those additional grant funds and not have a significant impact on our surplus.
So do you know, I know we were carrying and putting money into Ann Roberts Young for our surplus. Are we going to need to put all of that into Ann Roberts Young at this point, or is it too early to ask them?
So we still haven't got the final numbers of the construction project. We're still receiving the final invoices and looking at the deficiency list, etc. And so we don't know fully if we're going to need that. We definitely will have to contribute the $300,000. That was a board commitment with the ministry as a contribution from the district to the project. But then there's an additional $800,000 that is potentially going to be required out of reserves. And so we don't have the final numbers yet, I'm sorry. I think we'll be required to utilize some of those funds, but not the full 800,000.
Any other questions, Bill?
I'm just looking at the human resources summary here. Is that for all, like custodians, EAs, bus drivers, everything?
Yes.
So how many are we actually above, like to the plus right now? It says changes to existing. I'm assuming, does that mean changes as in going from nighttime custodian to daytime?
No, so that would mean like if they've been given additional hours. So for example, one of the applications that we talked about from the federal COVID funds was adding some additional supervision, lunch period monitors and time and bus supervision, et cetera. So that would be a change in their hours. So perhaps adding additional hours to existing staff.
Because didn't we gain, pretty well every school gained a custodian, right?
We do have additional custodians. I'm not sure if every school gained a custodian, but we were able to add additional hours. And we've also got some basically district custodians that are helping supplement. So I think it's a custodian for every 2 or 3 schools. I'm not exactly sure what the ratio is, but we've definitely added additional custodial staff as well as supervision staff.
Any other questions? And all the question, all those in favor of this report? Moving on to 9.0, reports of the regular committee of the whole meeting, October the 5th, 2020, at pages 17 to 21 in your agenda package.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting.
Seconder Bill. Are there any errors or omissions in these minutes? All in the question, those in favor? All right, moving on now to business arising from those minutes, 9.2. If we look at the list of action items for the regular meeting, professional development, I was going to wait and see what came out of policy committee, because I think at this point, policy committee is a bigger priority and what dates and times you're going to choose for that before getting back to people on that one. And haven't connected with Hudson Hope at this point. And Aaron, internet letter.
Yeah, I forgot to email Leah and ask for the letterhead, but I will do that. I wrote it down, so okay. I will email you. And then that way I can get all the letters, because I have that list where it's gonna go, so then I can get all the letters and then we can get them off and everybody can sign them. It'll be fun. So I'll have that for the meeting of the whole meeting.
And thank you, Brenda, for adding those student FTEs.
You're welcome.
Moving on now to item B under 9.2. Leah has done a reach out to the city of Fort St. John. They have suggested that the chambers holds up to 33 people, I think, with social distancing. And then when you look up there at pictures of Ann Roberts Young, the Heather Hannaford space, that would also be a potential space we could, within the district, host a meeting. What we need to do is confirm the location. I'm not sure if the location is put back and forth between the city and us to choose before.
Yes, it has.
It feels like the recent correspondence was that they were inviting us to host this meeting in the council. Is that correct, Leah, in your correspondence?
They just gave it as an option.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know, we went to their energy efficient house, Passive House last time. I don't know if it would be worth suggesting that we meet there. Subject to obviously the availability of the space, because there's times when school will be in session. Is it worth trying to have it? So then you would need to look at agenda items back and forth, and then if you look at the time options that are given there, is there anything that works better for everybody?
The only date right now I can attend would be Tuesday, December 1st. I don't know about December 8th because the final exam schedule has not come out yet. So if I have to invigilate in my exams, I don't know when that will be. But the only time I can do right now is on here is December 1st.
Do you conflict with anybody else? 2:30 p.m. came from the city, right? Yeah.
She said that when she sent me these, that they were available right now, but that can change too. So did you want to pick maybe an alternate date as well? Second choice in case?
Well, I'm just thinking about Ann Roberts Young at 2:30.
Oh, I see.
And I mean, you
If they had any flexibility, 3 o'clock would work quite
Yeah.
well.
Let's propose 3 o'clock on Tuesday, December 1st in the Heather Hannaford Art Space at Ann Roberts Young. Three o'clock, same time frame, Tuesday, December the 8th, in the Heather Hannaford Art Space at Ann Roberts Young. Agenda items, suggestions.
Can we do that on the couple meeting in November so that we can think about it?
That was just one of the first questions that her assistant asked. The mayor wanted agenda items,
The mayor wants to do.
but I said we were meeting
Yeah.
tonight. I don't know if we can send some or if it really matters.
I might suggest that the first thing is to secure the date and,
Yeah.
and location, and then we can follow up with that later.
And I mean, if it had to be, it could be a meet and greet. You know, so that's it. We didn't really have an agenda at the December meeting last year. So we can look to that. Right.
And Chair, just to remind you, that you were just gonna say a couple words.
Yep.
Yeah, I would want to.
And the annual work plan for you. Stephen and I met and looked at it today. I'm gonna send 2 formats out to you. One of the things that we're feeling is there was kind of too much on one document. So we would hold the annual work plan in the same similar format that we looked at advance, and we fleshed that out and done some things with it. But we would have a committee of the whole one as well, so that we can build in our topics and see where our flow is and where our pinch points are. So we did meet about that today. Thanks for that reminder, Stephen. So we will get that out to you. And then item number C, public participation during board meetings.
Yeah, as per the board's request, so not only are we, as you can see on the screen, we're streaming live. We have 4 people watching, but that would include me and a couple of staff members. But the point is, on the right-hand side, public, if they're watching, will be able to make a comment or put in a question. And when the time comes, we'll officially put out that call for questions to the public. And in fact, we'll remind the public right now. And then I would pass those on to the chair at the end of the meeting, who would then put those questions up.
Stephen and I today talked about fine tuning this and putting perhaps a press release out to say to people, here is where you can access the agenda items here, and the function of that 17.0 on our agenda questions from the public is being met through the concept of sending a question during the live stream that is pertinent to the agenda topics. So we've then done our due diligence in terms of a reach out and have ensured that public have access during COVID-19 times. So we're at. Policy Committee 9.3.
We're meeting, Stephen and I, it's written out, I can't remember. It's on a Monday in November. I can't remember if I don't think it's the 7th, I think it's the 14th.
It is,
Yeah.
yes, the 9th of November.
9th, okay. Yeah, we're gonna meet and just talk about, make the plan for the year for what exactly we need to do and set some dates up. The dates will probably be Mondays for the policy committee meetings. It would probably happen on a Monday, just because I know for sure I'll have those days where I can, particularly in the new year, because I don't have my teaching schedule yet from college. So. We'll set that up.
Okay, so moving along. Great. Provincial Council.
Yeah, so everybody has the meeting motions on in front of them. So we need to go through motion by motion, and you need to let me know how you want me to vote so that I can vote according to the board's direction. So we'll start with 9.1, Climate Change Working Group. So this came from Metro Branch and Soup. Be it resolved that the BCST establish a climate change working group comprised of staff and trustees to inform the board of directors about the ability of school districts under the provincial government's current capital funding program to meet the Clean BC goal for public buildings to reduce emissions by 50%, to consider examples of schools that demonstrate low to no emissions, provide recommendations on how the 50% emissions reduction target could be achieved, and assist the BCSTA in collaborating with the relevant provincial ministries to create and implement a plan to achieve the 50% emissions reduction target. How would you guys like me to vote on that? Or any questions you would like me to ask?
I don't think it hurts us to get examples and information on how people are going to do it, recognizing that our climates are quite different. If you look at the climate in the two places that are trialing electric school buses, and the distances that their buses have to travel in a day compared to ours, it doesn't hurt to have information, but it really does have to be based on the needs of the region.
So should I ask who they're gonna, what areas of the province are they gonna get trustees for this working group?
I think it would need to be a broad regional representation.
Because, minus 40 and electric buses are not the same as minus 5 and electric buses.
Well, and charging stations, it was kind of interesting. The electric bus question came up when I was away, and I had my board stuff with me, and I pulled out the stuff from transportation and shared with the people that had asked me the question, the distance our buses travel in a day, let alone a year, and they went, whoa. So it would need broad representation.
The word broad is extremely important.
So what if they say that they just wanted trustees from the Lower Mainland, then am I voting opposing this?
Yeah.
Opposing it, okay? Sounds good. Anything else on 9.1? 9.2, video options for winter meetings. This is from Kootenai Boundary Branch. Be it resolved that the BCSTA consider enabling meeting participants to attend meetings by video conference if meetings such as PC must be held from November to February. So we're doing this now with COVID, but I think what they're talking about is without COVID, November to February with traveling with Kootenai Boundary, airplanes, things like that, I think is what they're thinking of. And weather restrictions on flights. Because sometimes the flights get delayed and then they only have one flight in per day and then they miss their connections and then they can't get to Vancouver. And
Is that what it is, or are they just saying the regular board meetings?
no, this is provincial council and things like that. Because I know, I've tried to fly to the Kootenays, and if you miss your flight, you don't get another flight for another day or two, right? So
I think if it's an option to either attend in person or electronic, but I wouldn't like to see Kootenai say it's hard for us, so everybody does electronic. Because I think there's a value in meeting face to face that I personally am missing.
I have to agree with you.
Mel and then Ida?
And I think now, because of COVID, we have learned to do this hybrid whatever, and I don't think it's gonna disappear. I think it'll always now probably be part of any, but it doesn't hurt to.
Well, you think at the time, say last year, when Nicole suddenly couldn't get a plane out, right? And now Erin was there and she kind of stepped in, but it would be good to give it as an option, recognizing the constraints of employment. Ida?
I thought this had already gone through last bit, because I thought Fort Nelson had brought it forward. And maybe it didn't go through, they had brought it forward.
I don't remember. And that, I don't think they brought it to PC then, it might have been an AGM motion.
It's a safety issue.
Because I mean, I
I
can
think
see,
it should be for both, like it should be for both.
because my only concern is that, how, because they do a Friday night, usually when you're there for PC, they do a Friday night thing with the deputy minister, the minister, whoever's attending, and then you do your motions the next day and you go through your agenda package, then they do another Q&A after. So the only challenge is that, I can see instances where they couldn't get out, yes, but I agree, I don't know, yes, no, it's not really totally up to me.
Safety thing, that's good, but
The motion is enabling, it doesn't say it's gonna be, it just says enabling, and I think I would agree.
Yes. Safe routes to schools as part of provincial active transportation strategy, SD39, BCSTA work with the Ministry of Education and Transportation and Infrastructure on opportunities to include and improve safe routes to schools recommendations as part of the new provincial active transportation strategy. I don't have any background on this. Stephen, do you know what this is about? Brenda, do you know what this is about? Is this more for cities and walking in on busy streets?
No idea.
Sorry, which district brought the motion forward?
Vancouver did.
Pardon?
Vancouver, but we're not comment on it. We don't have any background information on it.
Yeah, I don't. So just go with the flow? Because if it is something specifically for them and not so much a rural remote, it's okay, I think, to support them in that. It's about getting kids safe, right? Safe to school, right? But,
Brendan.
okay.
I was just tell her I emailed her the list. She doesn't have this list.
Oh,
Brenda?
I'm trying to find the particular, I've got the BCSDA PC things up, but I haven't found the motions.
yeah, they're not.
Brenda, we handed it out, hard copy, and I just emailed it to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Brenda. Yeah, there was something weird with the agenda package and it missed, anyway.
Okay, no problem. So one comment I could perhaps make, it came up on our BC ASBO conference call, was when students were taking public transit, they were limiting the number of students that were able to be on, or number of people that are being able to be on transit. And so some students were being delayed getting to school because of the limitations on public transit. So maybe that's what this motion relates to. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I can just wait and see how it sort of unfolds on PC and go from there. I mean, I think it's okay to support districts that maybe have different, that do have different challenges than we do. We would like them to support us, so I think it's okay if we support them and, so if that's what it is, yeah, I think that's fine to support, yeah. That's good. Okay, 9.4, funding for trades. This was from Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows. The BCSTA advocate for the Ministry of Education and Advanced Education to provide funding for all students under the age of 19 who have graduated from secondary school to enable them to continue the trades program in which they were enrolled prior to graduation.
That deals with what Dawson Creek was getting their schools to fund and to pay for kids that just because they've got enough courses to graduate, haven't had a chance to finish off the trades program they started.
And this also goes back to the ministry tightening up some rules regarding kids in the trades, in the dual credit trades training program.
Who have already graduated.
Yes.
Just to be clear, I mean, staff would advocate for for that to be brought back, that's fine. So you understand, it doesn't mean that those kids cannot continue. It just means they have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Like any other college student once they graduate.
But this is for those kids that are, graduate at 17 and want to take a trades program.
Understood.
Right, yeah, so, yeah.
I would support this.
Okay, anybody have any opposing views to this? 9.5, provincial funding to improve access to educational programs in correctional facilities. This is Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows as well. Be it resolved that the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General allocate special purpose funding to school districts to provide year-round educational services in provincial correctional facilities based on the level of service required in each community. I think education is great. So if we can provide it to people in a correctional facility, yes.
There's other districts, in Prince George, for example, would benefit from it.
Burnaby?
Yeah,
I mean, they already have programs.
Yeah.
Yes, all right, moving on. 9.6, this is ours. Additional support for letters of permission for teachers on teachers and non-certified teachers teaching on call. This is from us. Be it resolved, BCSTA advocate to the Ministry of Education for additional funding for districts to support teachers with letters of permission and non-certified TTOCs by providing resources such as classroom management, EAs, and professional development. Would you like me to support this motion?
Are you going to speak with the statistics?
Yeah, I'll have to speak to it. So I'll look if I.
But we've got old statistics, so.
We'll need it updated.
Do we want to talk based on current? Or is the picture better based on the stats from last year?
I think we have a number of stats that the reports that you have that would still be applicable, quite honestly.
Okay. The next one is timely response from TRB, School District 60, Peace River North. Be it resolved, BCST advocate to the Ministry of Education to ensure that credential reviews by the teacher regulation branch are completed on a timelier basis. Yes, should we
No,
support that
absolutely.
one?
Would you be able to, would you be able to get a number from somebody
We have that.
of how many people are in that situation?
I think that was in
That was part
the,
of our
that
last,
was part of the thing,
what we
yeah.
already did.
So I just have to find it and pull it up.
I got it. Nancy.
Okay,
You have talking, we have talking.
yeah.
I thought we did, but.
Yeah. 9.8, aligning school construction with enrollment projection. SD57, be it resolved, BCSTA urged the Minister of Education and Minister of Finance to request that capital funding for new schools and expansions be consistently provided on the basis of a 5-year projection for enrollment rather than on the current enrollment. Brenda, you have any comments on that?
Well, it's an interesting motion. I think that could actually be a detriment to northern districts in certain circumstances because the ministry tends to put funding where the most enrollment pressures are. And, you know, if Surrey and Souk and Saanich are growing like crazy, that could really, especially in this year, I mean, nobody's enrollment projections are going to be anywhere close to accurate. So I don't know. I mean, I think the ministry does take the 5-year kind of projections into consideration because they ask for that information as part of our PDR submissions. But they don't necessarily consider it in bringing a project forward. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I guess it wouldn't hurt to ask for that. It just might not be something that's in Northern District's favor. I don't know. How was that for a Weasley answer?
I think we could have done a little bit better.
Yeah.
Even though it was pretty much suggested it.
Ida?
On this, I would listen to the reasons for it and stuff, because what might come out of this one too is there's been one for sure of terrorists, and I think one other one was where they built schools on 5-year projections. It didn't count because something was supposed to come. So you might hear some of that too.
Right.
You have in here, Duncan Grand expansion built on a projection that never materialized.
That's in
And
terrace for sure, I know was on, and that school never even opened at all.
So this isn't like a field of dreams thing. If you build it, they will come, but they may never come.
In the whole province, we need schools.
Yeah, okay, so I will listen to the thing, but so far it's more on the opposing than it is on the in favor, okay. 10.1, enhanced co-governance approach for the recovery stage of the COVID-19 global pandemic. This is from SD60, Nanaimo Ladysmith. Be it resolved that the BCST urges the Ministry of Education in collaboration with BCSTA to implement an enhanced co-governance approach which will strengthen communication and collaboration between the Ministry of Ed and boards of education and will provide additional opportunities with manageable timelines for boards of education to contribute input during the recovery phase of the COVID-19 emergency management cycle. Yes?
Yeah, it sounds.
Sounds good. 10.2, action on anti-Black racism. This is from 39 Vancouver and 41 Burnaby. BCSTA advocates that the Ministry of Education investigate the root structural causes of anti-Black racism in the education system, develop and implement mandatory anti-racism education for staff and students alike, create a database to keep track of all incidences of racism in BC schools against students and staff. Take immediate action to incorporate Canadian Black history into the K-12 curriculum for the next school year. The revised curriculum would include contributions of Black Canadians and a recognition of the adverse effects of policies and racism on Black Canadians. The curriculum development process would involve fulsome and meaningful consultation with Black-led organizations. Yeah, I am in favor of this one. I know that when I teach my social work 200 and 201, we really get into the history of slavery, Black slavery in Canada, and the diaspora of Africa and Nova Scotia and stuff. And so I think, and a lot of the domestic students were like, well, what are you talking about? We didn't have slavery in Canada. We had the Underground Railroad. And it's like, no, we had slavery in Canada. And we don't learn about that in our K-12. So I think that is good.
It was a course in Nova Scotia when I was in school.
Well, of course, because
And it
Africville.
still is. of course,
Well,
there.
yeah, and that's where Africville was displaced, right? So. Okay, yes, okay. 10.3, public sector executive wage freezes from District 45, West Vancouver. Advocate to the BCPC and PSEC and the Ministry of Finance to exempt the K-12 sector from public sector executive compensation freeze policy. I think, Stephen? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Shelley will laugh.
I think we could get behind that one, just particularly with all the stuff going on. The other thing too is that, I may vote no on some of these depending too on what, if that's, the discussion. I mean, how do you know, right? And
how many
amendments are made and all that stuff. So hopefully it's smooth and it's not amendments on the amendment on the amendment, and there's no weird meeting things that happen like of Robert's rules and things. Oh, it'll be fun. Yes.
What happened to 9.9? 10.0?
Different categories. 9.6 is one category, and 10, like the 9s are a category, and the 10s would be a category. And I can't remember exactly what the categories mean, but it's different. Yes, we don't have resolutions in
No, we don't.
category. Yes.
We're all good there.
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. How it looks like.
Any other questions for Anna? I'm going to join on as an observer.
Yeah, it starts at 8:30 in the AM.
It's online.
And it's all Zoom, Zoom.
So you won't be arrested.
Huh?
You won't be arrested for creating a big ruckus.
I have never been arrested, Bill. And I don't ever plan to be arrested.
I'm close to it.
Yeah, unless maybe I'm 99 and need a retirement fund, but until then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So I have done a full half-day session on Zoom now. Typically, board chairs come together and meet as a group, but that meeting was done electronically, and what is typically a full day's meeting was a half-a-day meeting, and I did share the agenda with you. There are some new resources. They're not up on the hub yet, but I have the link for them. And this is one, Aaron, I'll make sure you get on the rights and responsibilities of resource guide for school trustees. It actually was developed out of a motion that came forward at the AGM about better supports. And there's some things in it that I certainly learned. Then the other one is government processes and advocacy. What wasn't totally clear is I had a choice of 3 sessions, and this was the one that I signed on to. A lot of the BCSTA stuff now, they're not doing hard copy. They're doing, even like the legislation guide, they're doing a copy on a hub so that it can be updated. And the costs of updating a publication, if it's a hard copy or huge, but it's not much. So it was interesting because the people are more knowledgeable than I, that they looked at this, had key points of they wanted clarification on and they didn't like the wording on. And the moderator said, well, I think it's still in draft, so I'll take those points forward. And then it was released. Well, I have to confess, I haven't gone back to see if the comments that came out in that working session actually resulted in changes yet or not. But they're worth a look. It was an interesting read. And then I've asked Stephen to put up here, there was a real focus on what the BCSTA would have felt that it was really important for us to be thinking about during the remainder of the school year. And they asked us to really think about student learning loss, the loss of time, the quality of programs, because we have lots of kids that did spend time, but it wasn't, we know that at programming quality, that face-to-face time with the teacher is very significant in terms of students learning. And to be asking hard questions, go ahead and move it.
Sorry.
That's okay. To be thinking about these kinds of questions in our work as a board, to make sure that we're thinking about how we are addressing learning loss. And I know Stephen's going to bring forward some information in November. Then the area that we spent a lot of time talking about was the concept of budget pressures. And that basically this year, and you heard Brenda talk about it, we've had an infusion of money from the provincial government and the federal government that are over and above what we typically expect. There's nothing to say right now that that money will continue into next year. And there's no concept right now that we're still not going to be facing some of the increased COVID costs that we're looking at right now at a time when a lot of boards have burned through their reserves. And one of the things that's been created out of this COVID situation is a demand for lots of different options. So next slide, Stephen. So they really, really stress the importance of us as a board being aware of where we're at with COVID-19, looking at a reserve situation, recognizing that there's a $13 billion provincial deficit that we already know that we're facing, and that one of the things that's not up there as a budget pressure is the fact that we haven't really had additional operating costs added to our budgets for a while, and the cost of doing everything is absolutely going up. So our costs are rising, what's coming in is less, and then you look at all of those things up there. So one of the things that the next one, they really suggested we make sure that we do is start to work on looking at our 21-22 budget earlier than we typically would, and to really look at your budgeting processes, because some of the hard decisions that a district might have to face around priority of spending, if you haven't gathered all of the information and been taking a hard look all the way along, it's going to be too late to make those kinds of decisions in May and June. And it's still an unknown question. I mean, we looked at the numbers Stephen gave us of kids that didn't come back to bricks and mortar. Will they be coming back for next year? And we know that the ministry is really taking a look at reserves and things like that to help with their picture. And they're recognizing that perhaps the whole concept of budget pressures and district budgeting is probably going to be something that they're going to have to help with some professional development around. But the real concern is get started early. And that right now there's been a data loss in determining needs throughout the province. Karen?
Have they, I guess my question is, you know, with this pandemic thing, and the increased cleaning, do they know if they're, maybe it might be too early, but do they know if the ministry is gonna continue with these cleaning protocols even after this? Like, does anybody know? And then what does that mean to our budget? Are they gonna increase our budget for, you know what I mean? Like, are we just gonna go back to the way it was before and we have to find the money somehow? Like,
So that's what I bet.
you know, like you still have to have all these cleaning procedures in place, but we're not gonna fund it anymore?
What I would recommend is that we, plan for those. Right? That's just prudent thinking, right?
Yeah, no, I hear you, but I wish that we, you know, and this it speaks to this motion about the co-government's recovery strategy, right? Like if these things are gonna be implemented now into the future, what, you know, what is our say in that budget process? And yeah.
So I'm putting this out tonight, not to do anything and not to ask staff to respond,
Yeah.
but to make us aware of our role and where we're going to probably want to ask for some information and be on top of things. So if we look at the next slide, which was on the framework for enhancing student learning, we are in a better position on this than many districts because we've been doing it. And we never stopped doing basically reviews of data and plans based on data, but there's a lot of districts that didn't. And so this is an area that is really going to be a focus in some districts. And what was stressed is this report that goes in, it's the board's report. And so staff may write it, staff may prepare it for us, but ultimately the report that this new report is the board's report to the ministry. And not to forget that it's our ownership of it and to make sure that we understand that this isn't a role that has been given to us. And then the next one. So if we look at the data that we have been collecting, we can meet some of the requirements that are there, but they're very specific about certain groups, and so we'll have to see where district staff is at in being able to pull some of that data. And there's a lot of districts that are very concerned about their data loss because we didn't have the typical assessments and things like that, which is why it's so important to get a handle on where your learning losses are. And this last slide just reminded us of our importance to establish our local priorities within a balanced budget. What are the programs that give us the biggest bang for our buck? You know, what's most important? And remembering that we need to improve student learning outcomes during and after COVID, and that we're going to have some learning loss gaps, and that it is now a requirement for planning. There was actually boards that complained about the 10-page length. That is meant can't be longer than 10 pages. And I heard things like Stephen Broden at this one. Well, our superintendent gives us a 95-page summary of everything that's gone on in the district that we base our decisions on. How can we take that wonderful 95 pages and condense it down to 10? And oh, wow, your superintendent's got more time than mine. But anyways, it was kind of entertaining.
The clock runs slower down there.
Yeah, the clock does work slower. So this was one area that I do feel we have, you know, a good foundation in. The others are areas that we'll have to consider when we start to look at our work and putting a committee of the whole thing in, projects in that we're going to take a look at. And that all important thing of asking the right questions. And if, especially in the budget area, when we look at, we've got a transition in secretary treasurer, and throughout, keeping an eye on that budget piece is going to be very, very important. And then we moved on to an all candidates one. And we didn't hear from Trevor Boland at it, but we did hear from the other three. And I have to say, what was really nice is that it wasn't kind of a partisan attack. Well, your group did this, your group did that. And there was a real alignment of the concept of the importance of education presented by all parties. So, yeah.
That must have been refreshing.
It really was. Actually, our own local candidate kicked it off. And I have to say that he kind of threw Rob Fleming a little bit because it seemed like Rob Fleming had a fairly partisan presentation ready to give. And he said, I can't do that now. So that was quite nice to hear. And I hadn't really heard very much about what the Greens platform on education was, so I do feel that I heard a lot of good things in it, so.
Did Mr. Davies mention anything about the FSAs and what the BC Liberal plan was for the FSAs?
I'll have to look at my notes. I don't actually remember.
You bring a speech one?
No.
We finished with the
Yeah, I'm
slides.
finished, yeah. I honestly,
Because I think if I recall, the NDP platform is to continue with the FSAs this year, but I just wanted to know what the BC Liberals had said about that and what the Green Party maybe had said about that. And the implications to, you got rid of the slide, but the implications to knowing where our students are and learning and what the implications to those FSAs are.
I honestly don't recall a lot of
Okay, that's okay.
discussion re the FSA.
I can ask.
Yeah, you probably have an access to ask the rest of the film.
Yeah, I'll ask that question because I'm would like to know. And I wasn't able to listen to that, to the BCSG forum. It sounded like it was really interesting. I would have liked to have listened to it, but
Yeah.
thanks.
So 10.2 BCPC, I have just forwarded you the staffing changes and then something else that came out today. I haven't really had any time to digest it at all, but you've got the latest information that I have. On 11.0, moving on, correspondence, and we have a letter from the volleyball club regarding third-party use of our facilities. And it is really hard for our local sports organizations that are operating under a different set of rules than our BC School Sports Associations are to understand why we can't just let everybody start.
On this agenda item, as there are other third-party groups that are making inquiries at this time, could staff bring to the November 16th board meeting, whatever that date is, some recommendations and information along with the staff recommendation for third-party use of our gyms?
Yeah, would that include some practices across the province as well, and what?
It's not, there are no bans currently to third-party use of facilities. This board, under the recommendation of staff, stopped all that, as did most districts. In fact, I'm not aware of any districts allowing third parties right now. There is an interest, and we feel an ability to review all of the requirements with our health and safety officer, to gather some recommendations and sort of sentiment from the field, from our principals and vice principals in schools, around whether or not we think we can make this work. And we'd like to be able to bring that to you for the November board meeting, for the board to make a decision on it.
Will there also be a kind of a statement maybe from our public health officer, our local one, that we've used on different things too, or will that be included in the safety officer's report?
So because there are currently no bans on the use of gyms, if we were to make a recommendation, they would be within with following all of the guidelines.
Okay.
Now, as you can imagine, there are many factors here, including custodial capacity, the follow-up, the cleanup, what the principals and vice principals would insist on in terms of this use, if this use were to occur. So I have set up a process to gather some information, to meet with sort of a task force and to prepare some, a recommendation for the next board meeting.
Brenda?
Yes, so Stephen just touched on what I was going to comment on. One of the implications would be budget implications. You know, as you mentioned, custodial time, et cetera. Because currently we don't charge user groups, so that may be something you want to consider in your recommendations for November.
And I totally agree. I think that's a good step. I mean, we do have this letter, obviously. Are you just gonna communicate that there's a process, or?
What I've been communicating to Northern, this particular group, as well as to Karate BC, that group, that the board is going to look at, is committed to looking at this issue again. And that's been the message out there. And but I honestly, I need to get a strong sense from the field and from our health and safety officer and procedures to see if this is something we would even recommend or not to you.
And I think it's going to be very confusing for our public when you have recreation facilities shut down for us to be stepping in to open things up. And if you look at some of the restrictions where there is access to recreation facilities, they're quite stringent in terms of numbers and things like that, and arriving for your hockey practice already dressed, not using change rooms. There's a lot of different things that are going on out there too.
Well,
Yeah.
it is happening, so
Yeah,
there you have to.
but my concern would be the, you know, what Brenda had said, the budget implications with the, you know, extra custodial and safety and cleaning and the extra, you know, stress on the staff, right? If they feel that they can manage it or not manage it, or.
Clearly, some
But
of
we
these
need-
conditions
we
would
need-
include
yeah.
putting this back onto the user. And to the degree that that is possible, which might even weed out, you know, the possibility of some of these groups to even agree and exist under these conditions.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to say right now what all those would be.
I'll look forward to that in November.
I haven't looked at BC School Sports latest. Have you had a chance to go at all?
Not the latest. It's been like 2 weeks probably. Should take a look.
I don't
No,
know.
I think you covered it all. I think that one of the biggest things is like, we don't want to put added stress on our staff. Even if you let them say that they're going to do the cleaning and stuff, that's still added stress on the staff. to
Checking
make
it
sure
out,
it's
yeah, it's
done.
done.
Like, we have to take all of it
Who's
into
following up on
consideration.
that?
Yeah, like who's gonna follow up, right?
And I think the other thing is, when it's a staff member that's doing things, we know that they've heard all of our school safety protocols.
Well, we hope it.
We hope that they have, and we hope that we're following them. You start to count on outside user groups to follow those. And it's hard to know if there's the same level of trust.
We're putting kids at risk unnecessarily.
You just need to know that some of these requests are coming from staff themselves. And the school board has traditionally tried to support community groups when possible. You can certainly be sure that, as the chair pointed out, there'd be strict conditions, and the consequences of not complying with those conditions, you know, would be quickly administered. But in any case, we'll bring forward some research from the field. We may not solve this next board meeting, but I have committed to these groups, and this board has committed to reviewing this question in the past.
Well, I think we should review it regularly. I don't think it's something we can just say no and then that's it for the year. I think things change, environments change, all kinds of stuff change. And so, you know, yes, I'm open to review this in November and possibly January and February again. I don't know, but.
No?
Right now, one of the big issues we're having at the arenas is it's not, if they're closed practices kind of thing for all groups. And there's a safety person there that tells them they're not allowed in, and they walk right by them. And they go in and sit down. Yeah. And the city workers are responsible because whoever rents it is responsible. So I mean, you know, then we're leaving it up to the hands of whoever is in charge of the volleyball, for example. Are they gonna tell those parents, you have to leave?
So I think we can bring all this back to the next meeting
Yep.
in terms of all of these great questions, but you're absolutely right, lots of issues.
Okay, 13.0 new business Remembrance Day ceremony, and I'm gonna turn it over to Leah, who's been doing the legwork on this. Go Leah.
Who's taking the minutes for you, Leah?
She's got
I've
it.
started typing them.
She is good.
So I've been in contact with all three, Fort St. John Legion, District of Taylor, and District of Hudson's Hope. Fort St. John Legion, it's going to be a small invitation only, ceremony live streamed. But they said a trustee will be invited, so if we wanted to have someone, that wants to go and lay the wreath. District of Taylor is doing a invitation only, I don't know if it's live streamed or not, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And the firefighters are going to lay the wreath, so not a trustee, is that
And
correct?
that's correct. And they do have junior firefighters, so I'm gonna suggest it's a junior one.
Okay.
It's the school one.
All right. And then the last time I talked to District of Hudson's Hope, theirs is usually small anyways, and so they are going to do a socially distanced ceremony, and I think that Nicole can be there to lay a wreath, so. Yeah, and they're also ordering wreaths, so do you want me just to go ahead and do the donation and
Yes, please.
just let me know who wants to do the city?
Bill?
Bill?
Please.
All right.
Chair, I think I sent out an email, but just to confirm that there will be Remembrance Day assemblies in schools. We'll just look at.
A Remembrance Day assembly is the only assembly that is listed in the Public Schools Act as a school needing to do something to recognize it on that day. There has to be some form of recognition.
They should do that
It is
for Orange
good.
Shirt Day too.
Michelle, your turn.
Okay, so I'm very interested, well, Friday is the provincial, voting day. And Helen, I just happened to email you during the meeting. Charmaine Christian has put together some, like an email that went to all teachers around, things that are happening in the district that day. And Helen will probably forward that to you. I think there's like, yoga, and there's another one, on there. So I just think it might be something that you would be interested in as well, and it's on, I'll tell you. Caring for yourself while caring for others, navigating self-care during COVID times. And I thought that might be something that you might want to do as well. I think that we all need that self-care. The other thing I want to talk to you about, and I sent this to Helen as well, but it was something that I sent to my staff reps yesterday because we had Zoom meetings on Friday and Saturday. Saturday morning, we had a keynote presentation from a lawyer from, she's an Indigenous lawyer from North Van. She's originally from Saskatchewan, but has now moved to Vancouver. Anyway, her presentation on trauma-informed practice is amazing. And so a number of us on the executive were talking about if we could somehow swing it to have a district-wide presentation from her. It would be on Zoom, but to have everybody, trustees, all senior staff, admin, teachers, custodial, bus drivers. She talks about virtual vicarious trauma, I think is what the word she used. And we don't even have to experience trauma in our lives to be affected by it. And we all deal with things differently and process things differently. And I think that students, having gone through COVID, teachers as well, during that time, a lot of kids are coming back to school with trauma. And how do we deal with that? So it might be something that we'll work together with the district on. But she has podcasts. That's the point of this. She has a podcast that that you can listen to, and she's really great. But she does things just for educators, so it might be something for us to look into.
I was just gonna say, you know, that we have educators in our district who do trauma-informed practice on the side and a second job, and then, you know, and there's more than one, and so, you know, they would probably maybe also be able to offer you what it is. And they're local, and I can get you some names.
Yeah. Okay, I think the reason why it was so powerful, because she's Indigenous.
Yeah.
She talked about things that she has personally gone through, as far as going into a courtroom as the Indigenous lawyer and being asked if she's the client. Right? And just that whole thing on not being recognized for, you know, for who she is. So it might be something for us to discuss. Anyway, the other thing I want to talk about is I appreciate Stephen's presentation this evening, and there are so many good things happening in schools. And I've been in schools recently, and I talked to one teacher, teaches grade 6. She said, you know, Michelle, it's really business as usual for us here. We're in our cohort, everybody feels safe, we're doing lots of good things. She said, but going into this whole thing in September, she was like worried that she wouldn't be able to use manipulatives and couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And she said, actually, it's not like that at all. She's like really thankful that you know, the way it was handled and the restrictions that are in place really has made it for a positive experience for her. But I do want to tell you that teachers are tired. And I know men are tired as well. I think everybody is tired. You're tired, right, Steve? Brenda's tired, everybody's tired. So I think that, I think that we can, and I try to support as best that I can, but for trustees to go into schools as well and say, hey, thanks for the work that you're doing, would go a long, long way. And the last thing I want to mention is that Mary Tremaine is having a knee replaced in November 4th is her surgery date in Prince George. And so we've had to do some quick thinking as to replacing her for the interim, right? So how do we do that without a vote? So basically I appointed at our last executive meeting, because Donna Balmer is part-time, it was easy to have her just on one of her days she's not working to be the acting vice president for while Mary has her surgery and then is recovering. So just wanted you to know that as well. There's a little bit of change up there. So now you know, we don't want two out, so I have to be super careful now that, you know.
So Donna's replacing Mary during her replacement.
That's right, so Donna is, yeah. So I think because she teaches Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at Robert Ogilvie, her HR day, her union day will be the Monday. So I worked it out with senior staff. So.
Thank you for appreciating our TTOC shortage.
Yeah, I didn't take that into account. Well, we all work together, right? And I know Stephen's been out of schools too, and you know, just waiting for the day that when he goes into a class, because there's no TTOC. Because the men are going into classes when there aren't teachers. We didn't plan.
I was the bus monitor Friday morning at Charlie Lake.
I love it. See, we all chip in.
Yeah.
It's like all hands on deck, right?
We're just waiting for Stephen to go back into the classroom and teach French immersion again, just like Mr. Sloan was teaching English at the high school. He'll be the kindergarten French teacher.
Am I getting fired here?
Or promoted.
Move up to elementary school.
All right, thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Can I have a motion to bring the in-camera motions?
Do we have any questions?
Do you have any questions for
Oh, do we have any questions for Michelle?
No,
From
for
the
the,
press.
sorry, there's no QP local, there's no DPAC, so
Yeah.
questions from press and public. No press, and Chair, I can tell you that there are no chat or questions on the live stream.
We didn't think so, we hadn't told people we're doing it. So. All right, so moving on to where I
Yeah.
jumped to.
I'll make a motion.
David was first, Bill was second.
I tried it.
To bring those motions forward. Now could I have a motion to, all in favor? Okay, now could I have a motion to adjourn, and I knew Aaron was gonna be first, then Bill. All right, all in favor? Carry.
Thank you. Should we shut up and chat?